So the long-awaited expansion to Galactic Civilizations 3 is finally out, and as you can see from this very nice new welcome intro screen, the name of that expansion is Crusade. And during the course of this Let's Play, I'm going to be showing off as many of the new features from Crusade as possible, and playing the game a ton, and discussing my opinions on the new expansion and the current state of the game. But in this first video, it's kind of an introduction video where I immediately delve into the new features of Crusade. I'm going to show them in as much detail as possible. I'm going to leave my opinions on the expansion and the current state of the game probably to the rest of the Let's Play, the main part of Let's Play. If you want to immediately see me playing the game in action, though, you may want to go to the next video. This is just showing off the features of the expansion. When that next video is out, there's going to be a link in the cards in the eye symbol up here. Okay, let's get to starting a new game then, and having a look at all of the features that you can now find within Crusade. So within Crusade there are 3 new civilizations that you can choose from, and in fact all of these civilizations have actually had changes made to them. We can see the first of the new civilizations here, the Terran Resistance, but there's also the Onyx Hive, and the last one to be added is the Slines. There's quite a few different civilizations that you can choose from now, especially if you've got all of the DLCs. So if we have a look at the Terran Resistance again, all of the new civilizations have new abilities, and in fact many of the old civilizations have actually been changed as well. Many of their abilities are different to what they used to be. I think in the main most of their traits are actually the same, but there is one significant change in the traits column. You can see now that some of the races have different settings for what type of life they are. In the case of the Terran Resistance, they are carbon-based life, and this is the most common type of life found within the Galactic Civilizations 3 universe. So what this basically means is that they require food in order to grow, increase their population caps. But some of the other civilizations that do things a bit differently. For instance, the new Onyx Hive and also the Slime, they are silicon-based life, and basically they require durantium to grow their populations. So that's what they use to make their cities, and I'll be showing this shortly. They aren't the only options though. You've got the Yor, of course, who are synthetic, who have to actually make their citizens. And the Taurians are actually a bit different as well. They happen to be amphibious, which is still carbon, of course, but basically they have the ability to colonize water worlds and don't get a penalty from them. And yeah, they also have some extra tile bonus that they get, which is exactly the same as it used to be actually when these guys were added back in Galactic Civilizations 3 Mercenaries, which is a much, much smaller expansion than Crusade is. Crusade isn't actually a standalone expansion, but it almost feels as if it is. If you actually already own Galactic Civilizations 3, I believe it's cheaper than buying it outright if you don't own the game currently. Not sure if things are going to change on that, but yeah, that's the current state of things. Let's actually start a new game then and show off show off the 3 races in more detail. So we'll start with the Terran Resistance. And in terms of the galaxy settings, they are pretty similar to what they used to be. I don't think there's too many changes here. Graphically, it's a bit different though. The UI has actually had a bit of upgrades, and also we get to see this nice star formation based on the type of stars you happen to choose and the galaxy size as well. No, I don't want to do that. Right, let's put that back on setting it was. Okay, and my opponent should be the same. Okay, so let's get started then. I can discuss much more of the new features added within Crusade. So here we can see the Terran Resistance in much more close-up detail, a bit of the backstory and their strengths and weaknesses of the ones who were left behind. If we exit that screen now, we can see the galaxy map in a much more detail. And in fact, I should pay attention to the UI because it's had, well, changes done. It's certainly looking a reasonable amount different, and there's a variety of new options actually added across the UI. And there's also new features, of course, that were added, so that they have their own screens, which I can't actually access yet because I haven't unlocked them. I am actually going to load the game shortly though, which I've played about 90 odd turns, I think, something like that, where a lot of these are unlocked and I can look in them and go into much more detail on certain features that have been added. But let's have a quick look at the Terran Resistance first, and I'll show the other new races as well. So if we come into the designer, all of the new species have their own new ship designs, of course. And every civilization within the game actually has their own tech tree. There are some small changes. Some races have more changes than others. So in the case of the Terran Resistance, it's very similar to the other Terran Empire found within the game. Their tech tree is pretty generic. They do start out with War College though, which is a new feature found within Crusade. So what this does is unlock the commanders, which I can mention more about shortly. And yeah, like I mentioned, they're pretty generic apart from that, their tech tree. What I mentioned about them being a carbon-based life form though is pretty important. So if we come into their planet screen here, we can see these new resources, which I'm also going to talk more about later on. I think actually those graphics were actually in the base game before, but these do different things these days. So there's actually been quite a few changes to buildings found within the game, at least some of them. They do certain different things, and there's been a huge amount of changes to the economy, but I'll be talking more about that coming up. So what was I coming in here to look for anyway? Basically I wanted to show the city improvement. Now this is mainly to do with the carbon-based life form requirement. It's different for the silicoids, which I'll be showing shortly. So you can see here you need a certain amount of food before you can raise the population caps on your planets. And this is the case for each and every one of your planets, depending on what type of life form you happen to be. So I think the carbon and the aquatic are pretty much the same. And yeah, they require food. Now, food is actually a global resource, and it shows up here, or at least it should do when you actually get some. So you can basically make food on any planet, and then as long as you've got enough food, you can make the city on basically any of your planets. So it's a bit different to how it used to be. Let's take a look now at the other couple of new civilizations that have been added. So here is the second of the new civilizations, the Onyx Hive. These guys basically live in and around asteroids, or at least they really like them. I think they still live on planets, but yeah, the asteroid theme is very significant to this civilization. Their strengths and weaknesses, they're very much focused on espionage, this species, and they in fact even start with spy, so I'll be able to show espionage coming up with them. And they actually also start with resources as well, a small amount. To be honest, I think it's a pretty crappy ability with them. Something like 4 resources up here, that's not going to be able to do too much with that. So if we come into the citizen screen, we can see a bit of how this looks. I'll be showing much more about this coming up. So the spies, what you can do with them is basically protect against other spies. And you can also send them off to spy on other civilizations, but I can't quite do that yet here because we haven't found another civilization. I'll be showing this more coming up when I load the save game I've got. So if we have a look at the homeworld here, Onyx Prime, looks a pretty crappy homeworld because it's all dispersed all over the place as well, which is a bit of a shame. The city is different because they are silicoids. It mentions you need durantium to grow instead, so there are no farms for the silicoid species. So in some ways this is probably going to be a lot easier to grow their population than some of the other races, as long as you have durantium, which is by no means a given. you actually start with a couple extra Durantium, but that's not even enough to actually make the starting city with. So in other regards of this race as well, let's have a look in the designer. So we can see this asteroid theme here for the ships. And in the tech tree, it's slightly different to the other species as well. They start with espionage. So with the new citizens you can immediately get spies, which is great. And the espionage is pretty, a long branch within the tech tree as well for them. I'm not sure if it's longer than most other species. It might be. I'll have to have a look with the other new civilization coming up if that happens to be the same. I think they have maybe some bonuses to do with the hulls because of their asteroid related thing. But to be honest, I can't actually see any different text in here, so maybe I'm wrong on that. I kind of suggested it within the description though. And there's no food to be found within this part of the tech tree either. So yeah, some differences with them, but yeah, maybe not a massive amount. Let's take a look now at the last of the civilizations to be added within Crusade. So this is a slime civilization who happen to be a gelatinous silicoid species who are very much focused on technology. The starting abilities, they have the ability to travel through nebulas without ill effects, which is actually the old ability for the Iconians who have a different ability now. And with that ability as well, they also have access to the Hyperion buildings, which I'll be showing shortly. The other ability, they basically can get engineers a bit quicker than the other civilizations, which is a type of citizen. And I believe they start with a constructor as well, so you can immediately get a starbase made. And with all the civilizations, they have their own colors for the UI as well. Can't say I particularly like the slime's color and the onyx's color, but you could in theory change that. There are options to do it, I believe, which I'll show shortly. So if we take a look within the designer screen, first of all, we get to have a look at their ships, and I do like their ships actually. They look pretty good. So they've got a eyeball type ship there for the scouts, and another one there really for the explorer. And you can of course create your own designs, which has always been the case within Galactic 3. That's something I'll probably be talking more about in the upcoming videos. If we take a look though within the tech tree and have a look at the differences here. So they start with zero gravity construction, which is a tech that normally unlocks the engineers. That's why they can have them. And also found within this tech, which isn't the case now for every civilization. I'm not sure they're the only ones who have this ability, but yeah, all of the Hyperion type buildings now, most civilizations don't get them, including this one, which is incredibly important, or at least it was in previous iterations of the game. The Hyperion Shrinker was basically the most important building in the game in my opinion, because you could stack a huge extra bonus of capacity if you happen to get the right adjacencies with buildings around it. So that's quite an advantage if they're the only civilization who can make this building now, assuming the capacity bonus can stack still, which I'm not sure is the case. But yeah, they also have other Hyperion buildings like the extra hit points, which is nice but not so amazing. There was a range one as well, which they may have. I can't see it though because the icons are quite hard to pick out, to be honest. What's that? Precursor nanites. That's a resource which I'll talk more about shortly. So yeah, that's this line, and they don't have farms once again because they're silicoids. So that's all of the 3 new civilizations. Now I'm going to get back to the menu. So there's a couple of things here that I should probably discuss. There's the civilization builder, which looks to me pretty much nearly identical to what it used to be prior to Crusade. I'm not sure if much has been added to it, but you can create your own civilizations within the game, of course, like always, and even upload them to the Steam Workshop. There's also the ship designer, which you seem to be able to find here as well. Let's click on that. Oh, it takes you to straight to this. What would be really useful is if you could do this without even entering the Galactic client. I don't know if that's actually possible still, but the people who really like this feature will like the fact that you can do it from here, no doubt. And there's also a new campaign, I believe, that has been added within the Crusade expansion. Right, so I'm not sure I can see it here, to be honest. Maybe you have to unlock this one first, is it? I don't know, to be honest. Campaigns really don't interest me because they're usually just like worse version of the sandbox game. It's good for backstory and some extra videos, I guess, but yeah, it's not something I really enjoy playing, to be honest. So let's look at those features in small detail, and let's actually now load a save game that I've got, which I'll be able to discuss much more of the new features added within Crusade. So here is a save game I prepared earlier. I'm on turn 83 playing as the Drengen, and I'll be able to show many of the new features that I haven't shown yet found within Crusade, but during the course of the Let's Play I'll be going into much more greater detail on each and every one of them. So the first thing that I should discuss is the economy. It's the biggest change within Crusade, and it's the one that was probably most needed with the game as well. So on the screen, on this govern screen, you can see there's a big difference here. There is no more global wheel, which you used to use to basically manipulate your research, your industry, and also your wealth. And there's also a slider for your military spending as well. It's completely removed from the game, and I can't stress this enough, that I hated the old system with a passion. I really hated the wheel system. It's probably the worst economy system found within any 4X game that I can think of. The reason why I say that is because it added so much micromanagement to the game. It was actually difficult to use as well. You used to have to drag the wheel to a certain placement to get the right output that turn. And you would want to specialize your planets basically in certain areas to basically get certain yields, like you would want research worlds or production worlds or wealth worlds. There was also a local wheel as well, which in reality I would always use rather than the global wheel because it was just so powerful to use. If you had a production world, for instance, you wouldn't want to be using it to have like 30% research. You would much rather come in within the local screen and manipulate it there. So it created a ton of micromanagement, since you would have to do that very frequently. And on the larger maps, which have you can have easily 20 colonies or more on this gigantic map, I think the default setting is up to 200 planets, it would add massive amounts of micromanagement to the game. I can't stress how much micromanagement it would add if you're having to manipulate each and every planet every turn. So the fact that that is now removed from the game, it's reduced micromanagement a massive amount. Not completely by any means though. Basically there's a lot to do still, especially on the bigger maps, but it's a huge difference to the game, and much better for it. Now you may be wondering what has replaced the old global wheel system and local wheel system and the dreaded coercion mechanic, which I really hated on top of it as well. That's also gone. Well, basically there are no more sliders, there are no more wheels. You basically have your output a certain percentage amount behind the scenes, I believe. That's always the same. And now you just basically use your buildings that you make to specialize in one way or another. So if you want your planet to focus on research, you build a lot of research buildings, a lot of production, and so on. It's a much more simple system, but it removes the micromanagement from the game. It's not necessarily the system I might have used, but it's a big improvement. It's not the only part of the system though. Basically citizens have been added, and with the use of citizens actually you can manipulate your economy in one fashion or another, even specialize in a certain area to get much more outputs. And I'll be discussing about those citizens now. So this is the citizen screen where you can hire new citizens. You get one of these every 10 turns. So I believe it's the first one you get on turn 11, next one turn 21, 31, 41, and so on. There are a number of ways that you can gain extra citizens though. You can actually research certain texts which will give you a new citizen type, and also you can actually build certain special buildings like wonders that can also give you extra citizens. Now, what these citizens do, well, they do a lot of different things actually. There are a variety of different types. You can see that I've unlocked 9 citizens so far in this game on turn 83. But yeah, there's much more than that. In fact, who knows, there may even be about 15 based on the layout here. So if we take a look at these different citizens and what they do. Now, I mentioned they tie into the economy in some fashion. Most of them do, not all of them. So the leader, for instance, is probably the one which yeah, most affects your economy. You can see here that this guy will give you an extra 6% to your economy, depending on where you place them. It's a global bonus as well. So if we come back into the govern screen, I actually have a couple of leaders and I've got them focused on social, but I could have put them in research, I could have put them in ship construction, wealth. I think there's one for food which comes on here as well at some point, influence, resistance, plant resistance. So yeah, you can put them all in one area or have them in a mixture if you happen to have your leaders. There are also other different more specialized citizens that focus on a certain area. For instance, there is the scientist one, and basically with them you can have them given a global boost which is 3%, which is to be honest, I think that should be bigger than 6%. That's something I would definitely balance. Or you could have them placed on an individual planet to give them a much bigger percentage boost. So in this case, with this scientist, what I've done is placed this guy on Durangi, my capital of the Durangian Empire. And you can see he's actually getting a 32% boost because these guys actually level up over time when you place them on a planet. So yeah, they start off on 30% and get boosts from there. Now, I said I wouldn't give my opinion too much in this video, but I guess I'm starting to already. I already did with the economy system. I think this needs to be balanced. Like I mentioned, I think the individual boosts should be bigger than the leader boosts. The leaders are much more flexible, so they should have a less of a boost than the specialized ones, in my opinion, certainly globally. And since the leveling up as well, it's far too slow. I mean, I've got an extra couple of percentage boosts for this guy, but that's not much at all. And if we have a look in Durangi as well, now I actually mentioned this in one of the dev diaries. I think they should have done raw production, at least for the local guys, because raw production is much, much more useful and powerful than the individual percentage boost. They could have done a raw production just for research for the scientists, for instance. So you have this guy giving 32% boost. Well, if your raw production happens to be very low or zero, well, 30% of zero is zero. So yeah, it's just not all that useful. And if you have a look in here, you can see my buildings are actually given a much higher percentage boost than the scientist is. And I don't exactly have many science buildings here. So yeah, there's some balancing that is definitely needed with this citizen system still. As you can see here, there are a variety of different citizens though, and as I've shown previously, they are unlocked within a tech tree in certain parts. Let's have a look at these in more detail. So there's a general which produces legions, which is how you invade, and I'll be talking more about that later on. The administrator is a big change to the game, and this only came in slightly with the recent last patch version 1.9 and version 2. Crusade is version 2.1. So this limits how much you can potentially colonize and how many star bases and survey ships you can make. To be honest, I would say it hasn't really limited me in this game. This is the first time I've really played a lot of Galactic 3 since about version 1.6. You may know that I did a guide for colony spamming, and a lot of people have watched that. I think the administration system, maybe as a bit of a counter to that tactic, actually, colony spamming. But yeah, it really didn't really slow me down whatsoever. I hired a lot of administrators within this game. And yeah, there's quite a few of these. Most of them are specialized in one area to do with your economy, though. But currently, with the way things stand, I would say the leaders and administrators are by far the most useful, the ones I would hire most. Some of these I would hire in some specific circumstances, but I think some balancing is definitely needed, like I mentioned. There is espionage added as well. If we come in here, I can't really show this in great detail yet because I haven't progressed enough with this game, but during the coming videos of this Let's Play I will be showing it. So you can basically send these onto planets to disrupt their economy in one way or another. You can place them on certain buildings, and also you can steal tech from them as well. And I believe you can get information about what their plans happen to be. So espionage is a nice addition. It's probably not super powerful, though, I imagine, but I haven't played enough to necessarily determine that. Now, one thing which I haven't mentioned to do with these citizens yet is the ability to promote them. Now, some of these have more options than others, but you can basically, in many circumstances, sacrifice the citizen for a special one-off boost. So this guy, you could sacrifice him to get more administrative points, or you could stick him on a planet to get reduce the colonial maintenance. But you actually need a lot of resources to be able to do that, and there's been a lot of changes to the resource system found within the game, actually, and that's what I'm going to be discussing next. So resources have had quite a few changes within Crusade. You can see one of them here, which is a planet type resource. They're basically split into two types. You've got the star-based resources, which have always existed. You can see them there. I think there are 5 or 6 types. I think it's 5. Then you've got the planet-only resources, which you acquire as well if you make certain buildings on your planets. So if we scroll through my planets, we can see a variety of them. That's the research place, actually. That's one there. Yeah, so you need to build a special building to be able to extract them. And there's actually techs found within the tech tree as well, which will increase your extraction rate if you happen to make them on your planets. Now, what they do, these resources, well, there are certain wonders found within the game that can require those more specialized planet resources. If I actually hover over a planet as well, you can see it mentions the xanthium deposit there, the Artocarpus virals there. So yeah, you can use them to make wonders, which require them in certain circumstances. They tie into the citizen system as well, with the ability to promote certain leaders. Sadly, not all of the leaders have a promotion available, but yeah, for instance, you can sacrifice leaders to get a one-off boost. So yeah, in some circumstances, the not quite so well-balanced scientists and the like may be useful based on these sacrifice mechanics that you could use occasionally. So yeah, they go into that system as well. And also there are now projects, I believe, found within the game. So if we go on a shipyard, you can see mentioned here there are missions, they're called, actually. So you actually require, in some circumstances, some of these resources, and you can basically use those resources to turn enact these missions and turn them into something else. So for example, you could get extra research if you had precursor nanites. There's a treasure hunt which doesn't need one, that's just extra money. You need silicates there to find extra Helios ore, which is another one of these types. It's just a switch. And likewise with that one. That one, I'm not sure, but it sounds like you can get an extra ship. And there are more missions found within the tech tree. I haven't unlocked them all, so I don't know all of them yet. But yeah, the resource system definitely seems pretty interesting. I think maybe there needs to be more options. To be honest, I haven't found an awful lot so far within the game, and feels as if there isn't quite enough. So that's something I would maybe balance. You can of course come into diplomacy and trade with other civilizations for them, though, if you happen to be able to talk to them. so they will happen to have them as well. So it's a nice change, but perhaps a bit underdeveloped. The more usual resource types, well, there you can see it's mentioned in the description what they are used for. So thulium is kinetic weapons in the main. Durantium we've seen with the silicoid types, that's used to boost the city making capability, and also it's used to actually upgrade your mines on constructor, well, on star bases. That's a big change as well, I should mention. There's no more constructor spam needed. Instead, when you make a star base, you don't have to bring more constructors to it. You just use the resources instead to get a boost and money in some circumstances, many circumstances. So that's a huge change. That takes a lot of micromanagement away from the game as well, which is a really welcome change also. So yeah, basically that's the new resource system. One thing I should mention as well, which I haven't yet, if I come back in the tech tree, it seems like a lot of the weapons actually require resources now, if not, well, nearly all of them, which may be good, may not be good. I haven't played enough to figure it out yet, but yeah, we should be able to get to see that later on in the Let's Play. The last of the big main features found within Crusade is the changes to the invasion system. So basically, before you would have to load your transports with a ton of population off your worlds, and you'd have to make tons of transports, fly them everywhere to conquer everyone. Well, that's changed a bit now. Basically, instead of using a ton of population, you use legions, which you actually have to make. And to do that, you have to, I believe, pick up the military academy, which you can have one per planet, and that allows the training of legions. I don't know if population goes into them or not. I haven't actually played up until the point where I'm making them in this game, sadly, but I'll be able to show this in much more detail during the course of the Let's Play, no doubt. So yeah, you make the legions from here, or you can use citizens, for instance, to hire a general, which gives 5 legions. And then basically you invade. You bring a transport with the legions onto a planet. You can see here that it mentions they have defending legions, so you would have to defeat any legions on the planet to take a planet, but if it doesn't have any legions, well, it's easy to take. And your transports aren't actually destroyed, which is new if you happen to take a planet, supposedly. So you could just have a small amount of transports, not have a ton of micromanagement, spam with the transports like it used to be the case, and yeah, use the legions to take planets of an empire. And of course you can get bonuses to your soldering found within the tech tree as well. So it should be a much better system, and there's actually a bit of a mechanic on the individual planets as well, a bit of a mini game, which I haven't been able to test out sadly yet, but yeah, basically you have to take all of the cities on a planet to take the planets. I believe that's how it works. I assume the capital building counts as well, which is also a city type. So yeah, you might have like 2 on a planet and you would have to take both. You can, though, if you have not enough legions, just wreck all of their system improvements, destroy them if it's not very well defended. That is a strategy you supposedly can employ. So it sounds like a pretty interesting system, a much better system than before, but we'll see later on in a Let's Play. There's one more small feature I should mention as well. When you actually are able to hire commander citizens, Terran Resistance actually starts with this technology. You can turn these into mercenary types in effect, or pirates, so you can attack your opponents using the commander on their ship. I think that you are allowed the best ship type for your commander, something along those lines. So you can attack someone while at peace in effect with a commander, which is a nice, potentially nice new feature if you want to play a more peaceful game, which is something I don't tend to do, but yeah, you could definitely use that in some circumstances. That's a good change also. But I think I've shown just about everything I can do at this point within this video of the new features, and I think I've discussed all of them, all the major ones certainly, but we'll be seeing much more during the course of the Let's Play, and I'll be going into much more details about my opinions on Crusade expansion and the state of the Galactic Civilizations 3 game as it stands. Yeah, I certainly have a lot of opinions to mention about that. So that's it for this video then. So I'd just like to thank you for watching. Please check out the future videos in this Let's Play. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well if you want to see more content like this. I'll be playing on hardest difficulty, which I always do for my Galactic Civilizations 3 Let's Plays. I haven't actually decided which empire I'm going to be using yet. I'm not sure if I'll have recorded the next video by the time this video comes out, so if you want to suggest a civilization I could play as, please let me know. I might not necessarily play as one of the new empires because, well, all of the empires have had quite a few changes anyway, so they all seem pretty different. So yeah, I might not necessarily pick a new one. But yeah, if you want to suggest one that you want me to play as, please do so. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, please like the video as well. That massively matters because it helps to boost my videos in YouTube search rankings. And I should also mention, if you have any comments or questions, other than just suggesting a civilization to play as, please use the comment sections, or if you just want to say hi, for example. And the last couple of things I should mention is I have a Twitter page these days. Please check that out if you want to follow me on there. I also have a Patreon page, so if you want to support the channel, please check that out. Even an extra $1 or $2 extra a month from individuals goes a massive way in keeping the channel going and allowing me to continue making these videos. So I'd be very grateful if you were to check that out, and even more grateful if you decide to become a patron of mine. And I'd just like to thank my existing patrons. Right, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for the start of the standard video Let's Play.